Hi there, my name's Alan Stockdale and welcome to another episode of Escape the Prison Matrix. And today I've got a guest with me who I met through Michelle Walling. When I say met, I heard her on a recording and she was on with Goz, her friend, and I really resonated with her straight away. We sort of connected on Facebook via Michelle and I noticed that Lily had quite a lot of people that seemed to be taking notice of her, as if she was some sort of somebody that was teaching people what to do. But I've found out since then that's not the case. All she wants to do is just share her experience, basically, and just with sharing her experience, help other people maybe through their experience. So I just wanted to say that just before we actually start. Now, Lily, you can find her, if you want her, on Facebook. Facebook page is Lily Earthling. That's Lily Earthling. And you can get on there, join our community if you want to talk to us. Anyway, enough about that. Are you there, Lily?
Hello, Alan, and hello, everybody else.
It's fantastic to hear your voice. So crystal clear on this connection today. That's fantastic, isn't it?
Yes, it's
awesome.
Wonderful. It's like you're right here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it is. It's fantastic. Like, sat next to me. Yeah, brilliant. Now, I know you had loads of questions you put out on Facebook yesterday that you was doing this show with me today, and you asked basically people on your friend list what questions you wanted to discuss on here, and I saw the response and it was like phenomenal. There was just I think we need about 4 shows and 3 Lilies, and I'll do an impersonation of you on the other 4th one to actually get through all the questions. So obviously for people listening to this, we're not going to be able to answer everything, and as Lily said to me before we come in here, she's not a guru, she's not a teacher, she doesn't know all the answers to everything, so she's just going to basically talk about the stuff that she does know and feel. So on that side of things, Lily, would you like to just take it from here and talk about any of the questions that you do feel that you want to answer for the viewers?
Sure. I do want to start a little bit with, sort of my story, even though I don't want to personalize this, but it seems like by sharing my personal experience, people can sort of draw from that and into their own experiences, because this is not something I want to teach people. It's something that I would like for those that want to. Experience is to experience this energy is alive, it's conscious, and it needs to be experienced. We can't learn about it, we have to experience it. So I wanted to sort of give my little story on how I became aware of it, how I became aware of this planet and her energy. And it was not because I was searching for it mentally. In fact, what I was searching for mentally, it was completely opposite, as it turns out later. I started searching for a spiritual way of being in about 2007. That is really kind of, when all the books, all the teachings, and I went into all of that, and I've studied. And every time I would get into some sort of teaching or books or things like that, what I would end up feeling is like it wasn't real. And I had this little bit of feeling, because I've got a taste of this energy, that this planet, when I was just a little kid, when I was 5-6 years old. And I remember when my life was really stressful as a child. There was so much going on around, and so much demand to be this way or that way. And I grew up in a very, very Christian that I person God. And literally, the church people told my parents that for them to be able to bring me into acceptable place, they had to break me. They had to break my spirit. because my spirit was not fitting in with God, plan. And because I did have this really free spirit and I was connected to the planet and I was able to see a lot of energy behind people, what was driving them. And as a child, I would tell that to my parents. And then, they would run to their pastor and say, our child's seeing this and this and that. And then they would tell my parents to break my spirit because my spirit was tainted.
Oh dear.
But I've experienced that, and they weren't like abusive or anything. It's just they did what they were told. And in the same way, I'm grateful for that experience because it showed me from a very young age how disconnected people could be from themselves. And so being in that environment, I always found a way to, to sort of find a friend. My friend was, our beautiful backyard with a lot of trees, and I would just go and be there. And I would just lay on the ground underneath the tree, and then after being there for a little while, everything seemed to be good. And I felt really good, and I felt the most alive is when I was in nature, because it felt like for me being a child that everything was working sort of against me. So naturally I found friends.
Yeah.
And it was nature. and as I moved forward, and I thought, looking back, that maybe to some degree my spirit did got broken, because as I started growing up and I started moving on with my life, all of that just kind of went away.
So are you saying you lost your connection then, so to speak?
I did.
Grew up? Yeah.
Yeah, I did. And I did everything what you were supposed to do, and I started listening to my parents, and I started becoming that. But once I moved to America, things started changing for me, because my life started to sort of push me out of that coma again. And so my life became very unstable. And then eventually I did a lot of personal healing, all of that childhood and everything, and it was in steps. And I, only looking back now, that I do understand that it was just my own self putting me in a position to where I can do that work, my own personal healing. I didn't go to psychiatrist or anybody. I did it all by myself.
How did you do that then, Lily, exactly? Would you like to explain?
A lot of walks and looking at things the way they were, not in the way my mind was trained to accept things, but looking at how it was from sort of a real perspective. And this is when I start turning back to that feeling when I was a kid that I had. It's just I could feel what's real, what's not. I could feel the energy behind things, and I could always see, where the masks were. Because right behind it, I could feel the real energy. And so I started sort of finding my way back to that feeling. And of course, I fell for all that. In 2007, what I did is I fell for, okay, well, there is this spiritual teachings, there's New Age, there's all these people coming out with all these teachings. And it felt like, at first, I would get into something and so deeply, and I would just be so passionate about it. And I would learn and listen and read, and there was people out there that were talking on alternative radios and everything. I would listen to a couple of times to every, I would listen and re-listen their interviews and things like that. And then what I was left on the end is still that feeling. It seemed like it was all right, and it was very attractive to my spirit, but yet I was always left with this, it wasn't really real. Like it was a copy. Like it was, there was no life in it.
Wow.
There was no life in it that I could feel, It was, my mind was going crazy because, I had to, my English was not that good, but I had to just keep learning all these words and trying to figure it out, what they mean. And because I was attracted to that, I wanted to find my own spirit in that way, to where I thought, well, this person might be offering a way for me to find my spirit, maybe this person. And then when I would get disappointed, I would go to a next one, And I wasn't like, oh, it's all wrong. I just felt like it was not real. So I would move on. And so I got to the point where I got so disappointed. I felt like I was dying instead of, putting all these years into trying to find my spirit. I got even more lost. I got so lost from myself, trying to find all these mental teachings that, and I don't want to say that I got depressed. I just got so disappointed that the only thing I could do is have myself, have my animals around me, and I just would talk to them and then take them on the walk. And there's a little beautiful spot right here by my house. It's a little bit of mountains and this trees, really old trees. Spend time there. And I cried on my butt on the ground, sitting and crying with a tree. And because I couldn't find my spirit through any of these teachings. And I just felt so lost. And this is when I started to feel that tree energy was communicating with my energy. And then, one time I was sitting there and I still said, okay, I'm going to try to meditate. Like people say, you got to meditate and do all that stuff. So I tried to meditate and because I'd been online and people telling me, oh, you should do this or you should do that or you should do this. So I would try all of that stuff. And I tried to meditate with somebody suggested it, what way to do it. And I just couldn't do it. I started laughing and I just laid on the ground. And next thing I know, I feel this energy from the planet. It was like a heartbeat, but it was an energetic movement of the energy sort of, through my body, because I was laying flat basically on my back on the ground. And it just moved through me. And all of a sudden I realized that I got that feeling back. And it was the planet that gave it to me.
Wow.
And I realized in right there, I had this realization that this is what I did when I was a kid. I laid flat on my back on the planet. And this is when I would just feel like everything was fine. And I didn't mentally realize this, oh, okay, this is now what I have to do. What I did is I started going every day with my dogs over there and try to recreate that feeling, because it felt really like a home feeling, like I was home, finally. And so that's all I did. I just went for walks and enjoyed the nature. And I enjoyed my tree, and then I started just really getting all these feelings. And through feelings and sitting there for hours at the time sometimes, I would start. First, it was really hard because I started talking to the planet sort of, and I started saying, okay, I want to know everything. I want to know everything. I want to know what we're doing, where are we going, why am I here, why are you here, what's happening. And first wave was sort of a lot of emotional pain, the planetary emotional pain, for me to process, because I said, I want to feel everything you feel. I want to know everything you know. and I'm just that kind of person, you know. When I get into something, I want to know. So this was my request to the planet. I said, I want to know everything. I want to feel what you feel. I want to be part of you. Because that feeling that I experienced, it was the most profound feeling when I was with the planet. And I knew that it was my mother. It was my real mother. It was my sort of my spirit's mother. You know, and so this is how I sort of only now looking back, I can say, well, I did that grounding and all of that stuff with the planet, and I've communicated with the planet, but I didn't follow any teaching. It just came naturally. It sort of happened. Because, and then I started, you know, after I processed all the emotional stuff, it was very hard for about a year. It's just too much of the emotional layers of the planet. And then the connections keep happening, and it's not because I wanted it mentally. What I stated years before that to the planet, that I do want to know everything that I can possibly know. And little by little, I started feeling this coming from inside of me, and then it started making sense to my mental body, some of the things. And I would get confirmations, like I would feel certain things. There was still a group of people, a spiritual teaching, excuse me, that I kind of followed in 2012, and I wanted to see, you know, if maybe that teaching has a chance that it was real. So I went through all this stuff, and I went to, you know, to hear this person, and what I've experienced there, it gave me another sort of proof that I can't go anywhere but the planet for the answers that I wanted, because everything was a copy of the real thing, and I kept just getting this information, but it was from within me. You know, it would come in, and sometimes it would take weeks for my mental body to find the words for it. And I got my reading of the energetics sort of back. It didn't come back to me as so much as visual as I had it when I was a kid, but the recognition, my inner recognition of the energy was very much stronger now than it was when I was a kid. So when I was a kid, I had a lot of visual, I guess, for me to understand the energy. And then now what I do is I just feel it. I barely get anything visual these days.
Wow.
And same thing with with when I sleep. I don't get visual dreams. I go into blackness. And I wake up in the morning with big good work, so full of life from that darkness that I go to at night.
That's the point where people listening to this who don't know sort of your work before this and what you've said is like when people say the darkness, they automatically think of badness, don't they? When you say darkness, and
Yes.
people need to realise that darkness is Gaia, is Mother Earth, is the organic, and it's basically it's all the rubbish that you see on TV and the movies. They all say the darkness, and you always associate it with the bad, the bad. I just thought to say that little point when you were saying that about the darkness, yeah.
Yes, it is that. And this is why it is so hard, because what happened is, and the more I went, I mean, I've started this whole kind of, understanding the planetary timeline, the planetary desires, all of that stuff. It started in about 2010. So, now it's 4 or 5 years later. And what I'm realizing is that at first I was afraid of that too. I thought, oh, okay, it's the darkness. Oh my God, this is horrible. What's wrong with me? I become a dark person, I'm serving the darkness now. But I realized that what happened with the darkness and light that we have right now, it was all fake. It was made. And it actually did two things, with them reverse polarizing the light the way they did, creating the white light. It's rising that true organic light, sort of speak, and what they did with that is they've created a prison for souls through reverse polarizing the light. And at the same time, what they've achieved with that is they keep telling us that this darkness, because it is really negative, the darkness that they've created from the light. So what happened is, at the same time, people would be afraid the real organic dark energy that is holding a universe together. It is the energy that holds everything together. It is everywhere, like the black matter. It is everywhere. So, and so with that, they've created this belief system that it scares people away from that. So let's say if a person has a belief system that darkness is a really negative thing, and they go to sleep and they go into organic core frequency of the planet, and it's just dark, there's no visual stuff in there, and it's timeless too, then they would be afraid. And for a moment there, I was scared too. But then I realized that how I feel, and the planet kept bringing me back to how I feel, because that was my indicator. It's how you feel. And so what they've achieved with that, inserting that, the hierarchical system and creating the time loop and reverse polarizing the light, what they've did is they automatically turn people off of real healing process that this planet is offering to all souls that come here. And so because they needed that, they needed to create this fear so people go into that recycle bin. Otherwise, how do you manipulate a sovereign being's free will? You give them fear, and then they'll run from it. And this is what happened. And when I talk about this, and this is why I couldn't talk about this for a long time, because people automatically just put me on one side or the other of this inorganic reality. They say, well, if you're not for the light, then you are for the dark. And that's why it's so hard for me to talk about this, especially, first I have limited English. The second is a lot of people have these belief systems, and they're right. That inorganic darkness is horrific. It is so horrific because it's so extremely dual. It's horrific, but at the same time, it is not well, I don't want to say it's not real, but it's not, it's manipulated to be that way for a reason. And it's not for our benefit. Definitely not for humanity's benefit.
Absolutely not. No. So what you're saying then, in sort of simple terms, is there's an organic darkness which is basically where we should be. That's Gaia. That's the natural state. That's the natural sea of energy what holds the entire universe together. And then they've come along and thought, yes, how do we keep people away from that? Let's make a copy. And let's make the copy inorganic and false, and then we'll tell everyone that that's bad, which obviously, like you say, for the experience of a person going into the inorganic darkness is bad, so therefore that stops you then going to the organic darkness.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Very well. I'm glad you explained that, Lily, because that's made things a bit clearer just for me as well, so thank you.
Okay, good. I'm glad it makes sense now.
It does, yeah. I mean, you say you've got limited English. You speak better English than what I do, so well done. Sorry.
By the way, I'm having a hard time understanding the English accent. It's so difficult for me. When I went to London, I'm like, when it was like 10 years ago, my English was a lot worse then. I was like, couldn't understand anything.
Well, so
you guys talk so fast.
You must, Lily, you must be actually hearing my energies then, because I'm just talking like I normally do. So who knows?
And this is the thing. And God has even worse English than you do. Like he says that Australian. And so when we talk, we're just like 3 words and then, okay, got it. Because there is, and we go in towards that eventually. We will lose the language.
Yeah. Is that another barrier then, do you think they created then, just the actual language itself? Because I believe so. Do you believe that the false light beings created the language for humans? Because I believe so. I think that we should be able to communicate centre to centre, as Goss calls it. I call it just meant, I don't know, using your heart and just feeling what people are meaning instead of using words.
Yes, and you kind of get this, like we were talking about. Sometimes we get a split second of that, a little taste of it, how it is. You just understand somebody without them saying anything. And then imagine that to be, on the full scale. Yeah.
Can't wait.
Yeah. See, the thing is, when we have our, what I guess I would call it an animal instinct, when we are fully 100% as a being on the planet, we are on, and we are operating from the center. This is when you can't manipulate a being. You can't lie to them, because they'll feel everything. They'll know everything. Can you really lie to an animal?
Yeah.
You can't lie to an animal. They'll read your energy. And this is, we are, and I know that this been sort of, viewed as a negative thing about us, is that we are animals. We are, on an energetic level, when we become sort of animal, this is when we are using all of our intelligence that is within our body, physical body, within our emotional body, and within our mental body. That's all included, working as one. And this is when it's very difficult to manipulate a being into choosing their own suicide path, or choosing, to feed the inorganic system, because we have to choose it. So they make it sort of in that way where we choose that. And what happened is, with coming here into this planet, because it does have, it's going back to same subject of, what this planet is, destiny is. This planet has two frequency intertwine for that purpose of re-entering into a path, a taking back to source. Because if you only have light frequency, there's no connection to an organic frequency. So this planet has that organic frequency and it has the light frequency. So it's sort of like a transition. So this planet is a transitional planet. So it transitions you from external experiences, bringing all those experiences, bringing them, because we are so fragmented, then all that fragmentation has to be brought into the center, so to speak, to where all becomes one. And because only through that, through becoming one, we can experience the internal source creation, because the internal frequency doesn't have the fragmentation to it. And so what we do is, this is what the path back is, we heal our fragmentation little by little by little. And we just started. And I know a lot of people want to say, well, how it's going to be when we return to source fully. Well, it's timeless, blissful, I guess, if I can use that word, but it's been manipulated, that word been manipulated so much, state of being where it's timeless. I don't know how else to explain, but we are very far away from being there, because we've got so much healing to do. We have so much fragmentation. Even you take own personal blueprint of one person, it's so fragmented and it requires so much healing. And it's not just, your multidimensional light being. You're also got a lot more fragmentation and manipulation to your energy through the time loop, through the matrix that we've had to experience. But at the same time, we can't just take that and throw it away. We have to heal all of that fragmentation that the time loop, the matrix, has created within our personal field, because everything is sort of a copy of a copy with that, and it just fragments us even more than regular light existence here. It really did a number on us. And we can't just throw it away. We have to heal it.
How do we heal it then? How do we heal the fragmentation?
You sharing your experience, like the other day with that article about how you reconnected to the planet.
Yeah.
This is how we heal.
Right.
This is how we heal. We just tap into our own spirits more and more and more. And we can't do that mentally. We have to sort of experience, like I said, we have to experience. You have to go and lay on that grass, or you got to go and sit under that tree to be able to communicate with it. You got to go and be with it. You can't just think how it's going to communicate with you. You have to actually be with it. And I know right now I've been feeling that the earth energy, the frequency of her, organic frequency, are actually sort of rising up from the planet. So you can be connected more than, I remember even 3-4 years ago, I don't know if it's me because I'm more active within myself, that I feel my own spirit now more. But now I don't have to, lay on the grass on my back for one or two. I can just, and hang on. I feel the energy, that calming energy within me, because that's what it gives you, that sort of non-dualistic feeling. There is nothing, it's not that everything is perfect and there is no bad stuff. It's just more neutral. non-dualistic feeling of just being in the now.
Yeah.
And that rises from within you. And I think the planets actually, and I don't like to use word raising her frequency, because what that term has been hijacked. And I did a video, and some people say, what do you mean not to do that raising frequency? What we have in spiritual teachings, all the tools how to raise our frequency, is actually raising our spirit frequency into our mental bodies to feed the astral levels. So when people, propagating a spiritual teaching that's not real, that's disconnected from earth energy, they say raise your frequency and they'll give you tools to do it. But what that does to your energetic body is taking your energy, your earth energy, from within your body, and it raises up into your mental body. And this is where the astral levels have connection to, and this is where they can, suck on that energy from you. So it doesn't take any tools or anything. What you have to do is have an intention to be on the same sort of wave as the planet. And then when the planet raises her own frequency, you're just part of it.
Yeah.
And I think you can now testify to that. That it's not so much a mental process of raising your frequency. It's just being. By being, then you understand that this planet is so much more powerful than we believed.
Yep. Oh, I mean, I personally myself, like I said, you read the article what I wrote yesterday. In that, for people who didn't read it, I just basically explaining how I was fallen back in love with Gaia, Mother Earth. And for me, where I live personally, there's hardly any trees, any grass. It's mainly just a concrete jungle. But I have connected back with her, and I am grounded with her, and I feel so much at peace with life, with my existence, with what I'm doing. And it's hard to put into words, isn't it, Lily, exactly what we mean by this inner peace, this inner love, just for being part of Gaia. And it's just, I don't know, I'm just out of the matrix sort of thing, as people say. It's really, until you experience it, it's hard to put into words what it's like. But it's so simple to do it as well, in my opinion. I didn't find it hard. I just reconnecting back to my mother, and that was it. And it was
yes.
Like, wow, and just the connection to the plants and the animals, and like I said in the article yesterday, talking to a fly, what wanted to land on my hand, and I said yes, why not, and it did. And I was crying. I felt this connection to this fly, to Gaia through that fly, because it's all part of it, and we're all part of that. And it was, wow, yeah. So,
and this is what you described. This is part of that healing, because when we become one as an individual, then the next level is you becoming one with the rest of the planet, because all the animals, all the life on the planet is part of this planet. And so we're just another layer that is part of it, part of this planet as oneness, that we are her too, unless, we separate ourselves from it. But if we don't, and we wanted to work on that connection, that's why, like you're saying, it's hard to put in words. But it is very simple, because you're not, doing any mental work. You don't have to do any mental work. What you need to do is wake up your own earth energy, your own earth connection within you. It's right there. You don't have to go get it anywhere. You don't have to do anything for it. What you have to do is tune into it, because every person that has a physical body is part of this planet, and they do have that connection within them. So it's not like we have to do anything. We have to search for it. It's right here. It's right here within each and every one of us. And yes, we we can learn so much from animals and plants and see how they do it. And then sort of tune into that. And they'll teach us. The animals will teach us. If we open and if we activate this and then sort of tune in into our own energy that is part of this planet, the animals will recognize that. They will recognize it because let me tell you something about animals and plants that are conscious. They're aware. The way they look at us is when we are in our mind, when we are not tuned in into our own spirits that are of this planet, when we are not tuned in and we walk around, let's say, and we go and go for a walk in the wild, place, the plants and the animals, when they look at us, the way they perceive us as though we are robots. I'm going to give you a little example from Star Trek. They look at us as though we are Borgs, that we're machines. We don't have life within us, This is why they run away from us. They don't communicate with us because they're machine. They view us as though we're machines. Because when we are in our mental body, when we exist in our mental body, it is not natural. It is created organic frequency. That doesn't mean that it cannot be healed. It can. And it will, and we have to heal our minds. But we have to understand how animals view us. And then, like you were explaining in your article, that when you tune in into your spirit, you become alive. And these animals and this little fly, they can communicate with you because you are speaking sort of their language now. You're part of the planet.
Awesome.
Okay, what else can I talk about? I wanted to kind of give an example because I get so many questions, and I think I'm going to go to this first. Yeah. Is how do we tune in into our spirit, that is the planetary spirit. I want to give an example, sort of a mental understanding. We have to, we are the animals. We have the instincts. We had all of that stuff. But what we've been raised in this matrix that was inserted, what we experience is like an animal living a circus life. It gets trained. We've been trained by astral beings to do a certain things. And don't you feel sometimes that you've jumped through a lot of hoops? Mm-hmm. You have to jump through a lot of hoops to get somewhere with astral beings, with their teachings, and they say, okay, well, if you do this, you'll get this, and if you do this, you get fed, and you'll get an upgrade to you. We've been circus animals. We've been jumping through hoops, and this is not natural. And so when people say, well, teach me how to turn back into that natural state, I can't, because when you take an animal out of circus and you go and put them in the wild, what we understand that we can't teach that animal how to be wild. It's got to turn into its own intuition, into its own animal instinct, even though it didn't use it for a long time. I love to watch animals becoming free, and so I get on the YouTube a lot of times this, this seal got free and all of that stuff, and it just goes into the ocean and it starts swimming when it was was born in a zoo, what did it just do? The animal just tuned back into its instinct. It's tuned back into what it is originally meant to be. And the memory is there. It is there. So it's like I can't teach anybody how to tune in into their own instinct.
I think that was a very, very good explanation, that, Lily. I take my hat off to you. That was a very simplistic way for people to understand. Yeah, well done. That was really good.
But I don't want people to think that I don't want to talk about or anything, because there's another layer to it. There is a healing on the collective level that is a mental collective. And to heal our minds, we do have to talk about it. And we have to share, because even in sharing, because what happens is some wild animals, when they are returned to freedom, they might go into a group of animals, and those animals will teach them too if they've forgotten, So this is kind of the same thing here. We should share all this stuff, but it's not from the perspective that we want to teach. It's just we want to be tuned in ourselves, and then we can talk about this, and we're all can help each other to heal. Because, a lot of people say, all this stuff. I know nothing. I haven't even, I've barely begun to heal myself. And I still struggle with it every day. And we have so much, our biggest problem is that as being human being is something that's negative, that's bad. It's like lower class. If you're just a human being, we've been programmed in a way to think of ourselves so little and so low, because that's what controls us. Then we control ourselves. If we don't believe within our own power, then we don't have to be controlled. We just control ourselves. So that is still a problem for me, because every day there's something out there that reminds you that you may not be smart enough, you may not be, good enough for this or that. It's just, this is all still in our reality. It's still in my reality every day. And I am not ahead of anybody. I just got lucky, I guess, that I got to the point that I was so disappointed with all this cloned teachings that I've somehow tapped in to my own spirit. And all I am saying and all I want to communicate to others is that every one of us, if we have a body right here on the planet, we can tap into it because it's there. It's there, and it don't allow any program to tell you that you are not good enough, and then you don't have and you don't deserve to be connected to this energy that is internal source. It is the source creation, and you are it. You are it. And don't allow anybody to tell you that you are not good enough or you didn't deserve it because you didn't do some kind of mental program or you didn't jump enough through hoops. Leave the hoops behind. Go into the wild. You are part of this people. And for an animal that grew up in the circus and go in the wild and try to figure out their own way of being, but do you think it's worth it for them? Do you think they're more in peace in the wild than in the circus?
Of course, yeah.
You know, and it's harder, especially when you don't know, when you forgot your instincts, when you haven't used them all your life. but it is there. Just like the animal can tap into it after being for years and years in circus, we can do it too. And you can do it. And this is what the biggest thing that I wanted to talk about and convey to people is that you are worth it and you have it within you. You have it. Every one of us has it. And even those horrible people that do horrible things, they still can heal. Every one of us can heal. But it is up to us. It is up to us to become who we truly are, the spirits, the alive spirits that we are.
Could I ask you a question, Lily?
Sure.
You know, just on the as we both agree that it is a personal journey, what you have to do yourself. But do you think the more people that are connected to Gaia, I mean, I believe that once more of us are connected to her and we are at one with her, we actually help to bring more people. Do you think there's an energy somehow that we help to activate in the people that actually start to actually reconnect the self, or do you think everyone just got to do it on a personal journey? What do you understand what I mean?
So I'm going to use that same metaphor. The more people become that wild animal and got out of the circus, then what we have to do is, yes, we do not want to leave anybody behind. What we might have to do eventually is come back to the circus and surround it. And
Like it.
get our, brothers and sisters out, even though if they're being made to jump for more hoops now because the circus is getting a little bit less people are in it.
Yeah.
People getting away from that matrix system, and so they trying to hang on to those that are still staying within it. But we might be right in those controllers' faces.
Yeah.
We might come to the point where we are strong enough within our own spirits that we can come up face to face to the controllers and say, no more hoops.
I believe
no
so.
more circus life.
Yeah, totally.
We want to be who we naturally want to be. Because what they've created is, this is where we came here to be part of this planet, to experience this path back. Because we, and a lot of people, we are trained to think that we are in here, we are not, enlightened enough, we are not experienced enough, and we need some kind of higher level education from our, from the beings that are 12th dimensional. We've been 12th dimensional beings. You don't get to a 3D not being a 12D. You've been there, done that, and you've experienced that, and through that, you're right here. So you're the most experienced in the light frequency. You are here. You're the soul that is here, embodied in the body of this planet. You've been all that. You've done it, and you passed all the tests and everything. It's like, I did offer that a metaphor of school. 12D is the first grade. 10D is, is the fourth or fifth.
Yeah.
And 3D is the 12th grade.
I totally agree with that. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I do.
So we are here now. We went through a school of light. We went through it all the way. We are most fragmented that you could ever be in the light creation. There is no more fragmentation unless you end up being a space dust. There is no more fragmentation that we can handle. So yeah, we had thrown this, this school and all this, we've learned all about light. What we are here to do is graduate from the light school and graduate and go into further, which is even harder. Taking all of that experience, all the knowledge of light, and heal it or transform it. Let's say heal it, maybe not, a good word, but transform that. We have to become masters to be able to transform light frequency into internal source frequency. It does take a mastery of the soul. You are the masters here. Those masters that are higher dimensional, they're third graders trying to tell you how to pass a test after 12th grade. I mean, this is how funny this thing is.
It is, yeah.
It's so upside down that it's funny.
It is. It amuses me, yeah.
It's like, okay, am I gonna listen to a third grader how to pass the college tests? It doesn't make any sense.
No, it doesn't. Could I take you back to the analogy of the circus and where we've all surrounded the circus and we're wanting to save our brothers and sisters? Could I take that analogy to another level? And it's something we spoke about before we came on the show. Is do you think we could actually go to the astral and save loved one what's already passed and maybe go in there? I think it's entirely yes, we can, but I don't know it yet, but do you think we can actually go up there and surround the astral and just go in and get our loved ones what are still stuck there? Or do you think they just need to take their own personal journeys and just come to their own conclusions themselves? What's your opinions on that?
Yes, we can and we will have to. Because astral level is there. If we are part of it and clean up sort of astral levels. So eventually, but this is the caution for those that go into astral levels. Any belief system or any leftover you have, they will hook onto it in astral level. So you have to be really strong in your spirit. But we will have to do all the work, especially the 10% that I talk about. I don't know if you've heard me talk in numbers, but the 10% that have incarnated through astrals, and now they have become sort of I use the movie Avatar a lot of times for my metaphor. It's like this 10% are like when Jake had actually spent a night on the planet, on Pandora. What that means is that as God calls it, the second born became the firstborn, is actually a person that's incarnated and then spent, after death, spent one night, meaning, being dead, but being on the planet with the planet. So now this 10%, what they can do is like Jake in that movie, he said, I know how they work. I know how the sky people work. So he, with the native peoples, he said, okay, this is how they work. This is how we can overtake them. This is how we can protect ourselves. So he, in a way, give a lot of advice to the natives because they don't know. They don't know. And so I take that as an astral level. The sky people is the astral level. And then, the natural Pandora is the earth. And so what happens is those of us that are healed and become the avatar, what we know and we can clean up the astral mass, and we can create a lot of problems in astral levels because we know it. We know how it works. We know what the intention is. We know all the tricks that they use. So those of us that been there and we know the astral levels, once we get really stable within our avatar bodies here and we are connected to this planet, then yes, it's going to become your job. Because it needs a lot of cleanup. We both know, Ellen, it's a big mess.
Yeah, yeah, it is.
And we can't just, deny it that it exists and say, okay, we're just going to be with the planet. But it is still part of the planet. It's a very sick part of the planet, and it needs healing.
Yeah. I mean, for me, the reason I asked the question is because my father died sort of 2.5 years ago now, and at the time when he was on his deathbed, he died of cancer, and I was talking to him, and at that time I was still believing that the light and the afterlife, that's where you should go. So I was there talking to him about it. And my wife is quite aware and psychic. She actually saw in her head my auntie come and get him, or so we thought it was my auntie, as I've come to realise now. And he was taken away, and he seemed to be really happy, like he would be. But so recently, since I've sort of reconnected to Gaia, and that's something inside me that I feel I need to go and rescue him, I've been having lots and lots and lots of dreams, nearly every night now, where I don't know how I get there, but I find myself with my dad, and he's in this sort of little... It's just like another little Earth where he is. He's just going around. He used to do a lot of DIY, sort of fixing things in the house, and he's doing these things, and I'm trying to communicate with him that he needs to come with me, and I'm trying to get him to come and sort of go back to the organic, but he's very stubborn that that's where he needs to be, and that's why I asked you, because I mean, people could just say, oh, it's just a dream, but it doesn't seem like that to me. It seems like because it's a desire inside me that I know that's what I need to do. And if I could do that for my own father, then I think then it's possible that we can all do it for loved ones and everyone else. So I'll keep you updated, Lily, if I manage to take my father away from his DIY and back to organic.
You will. I strongly feel that we will. In like I was saying to you, I have the same concerns about my parents. My mom is very close to passing on. My dad is, he's 99, and he still he's looking forward to his big 100-year-old body. That's that awesome. We promised to give him. So he's not planning on doing anything, moving from this planet. He really enjoys it. But I have the same concerns. But I will tell you, the people that are even in you consciously understand now that, let's say, your father is right there in astral level. He's stuck there. Well, let me tell you this. They're not going anywhere. They are going to be in that mental loop that they've created. It is whatever their belief system is. Just, astral levels are a very interesting place because it's a mental creation. Yeah. It's all based on the belief. So whatever they believe, whatever they view of their heaven, this is what they're doing. Yeah, and usually people do what they love to do, what they have passion for.
That's what exactly you love to do. Yeah, you're right, yeah.
And so they're doing because of the quarantine, they won't be going anywhere. And if the astral levels are sort of hard to work or rescue somebody from right now, we will come to a point where we will be able to rescue everybody that are close to us, our family, which I mean soul families. There is already an indications I see from some of the things that coming up here and there, that there is groups of souls, like oversouls levels, collective of different races that are trying to escape the astral prison. They're already trying to sort of communicate with themselves that are incarnate. A lot of people turn that into that escape the matrix and go through a portal somewhere to a new planet, to a new Earth or somewhere, but it's not the case. Those astral beings are communicating. I see that energy. I feel that energy. They are actually asking their incarnates on the planet to embody them, to take them on, to allow them to stay with the planet. So There is already movement. There is already change. It's very different. 2 years ago, it was very different. Right now, the astral levels are a huge mess. The hierarchy is all off. They're fighting right now amongst themselves for power. And this is because there's few key beings that have defected. Like in Leo, is given up. The Anu cannot even get into our solar system. He's been locked out of our solar system. Good. And there's a lot of people that, and all these people, the hierarchical system on, the guardians that were in astral levels are, they don't have a leader anymore. And this is what we see as a fight, because it's between two groups, two sort of bloodlines that are fighting right now, and we see this on the planet. There is an elite group have a separation among themselves, and they're fighting each other for control. Because there's all kinds of signs that they have a problem with the top of that pyramid, because the top of the pyramid is all a mess. And then the biggest one is that Anu has been locked out by our solar system and he can't come back. This is why the planet X will not come into our solar system.
Very interesting. Yeah, it sounds awesome information.
Because when you really do your research through the history and through the mysticism and all of that stuff, this planet X that comes once in a while, that's a new ship. He comes in, but it might have, some people said that they've seen it behind the sun, but it can't come in. The sun won't let it. So it just won't happen, because our sun is sort of in control of the solar system, and it's still a conscious being, and it has made a choice. And this is the thing with our whole solar system, our whole Milky Way, our galaxy is part of this bioregenesis program, meaning that it does have this both frequency within it, and at the core of our galaxy is the organic frequency as well. This is our galaxy. It externalizes through the core, and so it externalizes for the light creation to have sort of a frequency that they can, like a magnet, be incarnated on the planet for this healing process. I mean, on the planet in our galaxy. And then our solar system, is playing a part too. It is an externalization of internal source creation. So when these beings, they're incredibly powerful beings. Like, let's talk about Anu. Okay, it's an incredible being. It figured out the way to recreate light and extend light existence and do all kinds of tricks. I mean, it's very creative. But we have to understand that it's still, no matter how powerful it is still a little ant trying to take on a human being, which a human being in my metaphor would represent an internal source. It is so much more powerful that it will squish this little ant that's trying to pick a fight with it. Even though, I that's maybe a bad metaphor with the squishing ant, because I'm so sensitive right now. I can't kill a mosquito. I can't. I'm going to cry if I have to kill a mosquito.
Even if that little ant is an astral being that's trying to destroy the world, don't kill me.
Yeah. But this is how powerless these beings are compared to the power that is behind this light creation, that is in control of it. And so, but the thing is, the ego on these gods and demigods and all these people, the ego is so big. They grew the ego, and the more they grow the ego, that they are light creators. That gives them that ego. I'm a creator on my own. I can do whatever I want. And they're so disconnected from this source that their ego is blinding them to the power of it. And this is what happened with the planet. They thought they can manipulate all this stuff and keep doing their matrix here and everything. And the planet just very quietly said, excuse me, no more. And then there is nothing they can do, and they're panicking. How come it's not working? Why? Oh my gosh, this is a disaster. Our creation is falling apart. And all it did, the planet just said no more, and they can't do anything about it. This is the power of this planet. It's not. And the other thing, it's hard for us to understand how that source connection works, because it does not exist in space and time. For it, it's everywhere and it's everything. And so for us, we have all this fragmentation and we are light creation, but that source is within us. And once we have the connection, then we can heal all of our fragmentation.
Yeah, I totally agree.
You're gonna heal levels. It's so huge, it's so nasty. But when you feel that power, then it's not a problem. When you know how powerful the source energy is, that it's so powerful, it can heal it quickly. It's going to be done, and we are the ones who's going to do it, because we as a human beings and all of that people on the planet have the biggest sort of cancer. They're the biggest cancer. This is the cancer of this planet is concentrated, is within the people. So, but at the same time, we are the ones who can heal it by example, because once we heal ourselves, then the others will want to feel that same way. This is why we get so many questions about how is it to be connected to source, because people see that and they want it to be. They want it to be free. Because this is the place where we came as souls to become free of the hierarchy. This is the place where we wanted to experience this freedom. And we actually wanted to exist in it for a while. And do this, step by step and enjoy this. Because it's a beautiful thing. But what happened is the manipulations happen. The cloning. What we have, all these teachings that are not real, they're like the cloning of original biogenesis. They clone that, and instead of internal source, they've created that as a light source, but they reverse polarized it, and so now we have extreme dark and extreme light. And people get locked in this cloned reality, and they keep trying to find a way out, because they came in and they wanted to feel the freedom, and instead of freedom, what they got manipulated into is the savior. So that the desire for freedom become a desire for savior. And this is how our mental bodies are all manipulated. So a lot of people are running around looking for that savior. But what they really are looking for, if they realize, is the freedom from that hierarchical system that it's offering you the savior program.
Yeah.
You are not, when you want to be safe, what you actually really truly looking for is for the freedom to be an earth soul and to experience the planet, because nothing is random. You didn't come here to become a light being. You've been a light being. You've done every possibility of that experience. You've done all of that. You've been all of that. You didn't come here to go through a 12 grades of school and come to the planet Earth to move forward into a college. You didn't come here to pass the exams to go into college just so you can go back to first grade. You came here to experience the freedom that source creation is offering to all light beings on this planet. We're talking about this planet. This is why you came here, to experience the freedom. But you've been manipulated into searching instead of freedom. They actually twisted it. And they present the savior hierarchical system as the freedom. It's not freedom. It's more prison. It's more prison because there is no equality in that system. You can't have freedom without equality. So we have to start decoding all these tricks of the matrix. We have to start seeing it for what it is. It's a manipulation. And then tuning in what you truly feel like, what you are and what you truly came here to do. You came here to experience freedom of source. You came here, yes, you came here to experience creation, but you came here to experience creation as an independent, sovereign being with a free will choice. You didn't come here to follow into some sort of savior program. You didn't. You came here to experience freedom. We all came here to experience freedom within this planet. This is why we hear it. Nothing is random. You know, and I know a lot of people would tell me, well, we have to become light creators because this is why we came here. No. Why? Why, with all that experience in light, why can't we move past that? Why are we limiting ourselves to just be a light creators? Why? I don't want to be limited by that. I want to experience all source creation. I want to be one with all of it, but that doesn't mean that source creation doesn't like or doesn't approve of light creation. It is its creation. It's all one. It's just externalized creation, internal creation. But you know, that's why I don't want to. Yeah, go ahead.
I love the way you describe what you've just said, though, there, in the videos you do with the out-breath. So it's like the internal source creation's breathing out, and that's creating all what is now, and with all the lights and everything, and then breathing back in and taking everything back to source. So if you look at it from a very simple perspective like that, but look that on a billions of years scales, it makes it very easy to comprehend what you're saying, I think.
Yes, it is a big scale, but, you know, and even that is being manipulated. So there's a lot to that breath in and reality. So light to darkness, from light to darkness, that is part of light creation, that darkness. They're not talking about, you know, the internal source creation. So, you know, locked in that circle of time, and then our personal, and everything in this matrix, everything kind of goes in the circles. Have you noticed that? Like our minds keep going in the circles.
Yep. Absolutely.
Because it's a miniature matrix, and we keep going from one, like, and we come back at the same place where we were, and it's like even the astral levels. And you were talking about your dad. You've seen him there, and he's doing the same thing over and over and over and over again.
Yeah, that's true.
And there's just the different scales of it, because as much fragmentation as we have, when we get locked in this sort of matrix system, that every fragmentations get manipulated. So from the big one, to where we go, in big cycles of time. That's one of the big fragmentations. And then, it gets to the point where, our bodies, within our bodies, everything goes in cycles. And then, and so what we have, how we heal that and how we step out of it or dissolve the matrix system is we start from the smallest fragmentation and we heal that first, which is us, ourselves. We have the power to do it. And so that fragmentation has to come back, and keep healing into one. Like I said, the first one is, even if you take it within your body, your mental body, your emotional body, and your physical body, when you heal that fragmentation, you become one. The power of that, I got a little taste of it, little tiny bit taste of it. But now I'm thinking, once I heal all that, then nothing can hold me back. There is nothing. And this is one of the things that fears, a lot of fears. We have a lot of fears that are hidden. They're under the mask of, positive thinking and all of that stuff. But when you really dig into it, the matrix system is really built on fear. This is how we keep ourselves locked in, is fear. And even though a lot of people would say, well, I am not afraid of this or that. I like more positive way of thinking. And a lot of times people just, how they get rid of their fear, they just become in denial of it. And they say, I don't have fear about that. Well, but it actually a denial, or they mask it with something else. Or they'll say, well, it's the dark side trying to sort of, bring me in or something. It's a denial of that, but it's still a fear of it. But with this organic healing, the fear really does dissolve. And it's layer by layer by layer as well. And I didn't know that I had a lot of fears until I started facing them first for what they are. Because once you go into this, like I say, all the spiritual teachings, they are clones of, organic biogenesis process. And when you really start doing the real thing, you can't, because the real thing won't lie to you, and it won't present itself as something else. So you will end up dealing with real fears that you have. You will end up, that will all bring itself up to you, right in front of your face. It'll be right there. Because, and this is the other thing that I tell people, when you choose this path of organic healing, things will bring themselves up for healing within you, because you're going through a personal process of healing. So it's not an easy path. It's not all, sunshine and roses. Sometimes you have to deal with very deep fears. But once you deal with it and you heal it, it won't come back. It's done. Once it's brought into healing, it's done. And you get the confidence within you, and you feel that power, because you understand then, if you can heal yourself, then in turn we can heal the collective. Because if it's possible to heal yourself, it's possible to heal all.
Yep, that's what I want to do. Yeah, I do. Could I ask you a question on a related subject? Astral taggings. Could you explain? I mean, I know what they are personally, but there's people that listen to my show probably haven't got a clue. So could you explain what astral taggings are and what's the best way to deal with them?
Yeah, God's probably going to be a better person about how to remove them. And I got a lot of questions about that from my Facebook group for all my lovely friends over there. But I had seen sort of in my dream at night, I've seen how that process works. And it was a while back, quite a few years back, when I was into a certain teacher. I'm not going to name the names here because don't want any problem.
Yeah.
But there was a teaching that I was really close to, and when I get into something, it's very in detail, and I study everything. And then one night I saw that teacher and the group, because let's just say this person was in contact with with a group of aliens, and now I understood that they're all in astral levels. So, and what they were doing, it is a group. It's kind of like they're on the mission, and those tags, they're energetic tags, but they almost kind of look like, they look like a sort of, like a, people get tagged in astral levels. So this is why I caution people to go in astral levels, because what happens is, and the people that get tagged is they get tagged through listening to this teacher. So what they do is they listen to the teachings and then they go to sleep at night, and they created certain beliefs now. So the certain beliefs in astral levels, they get tagged. And what I experienced, I was watched that everyone who was listening to this guy was being tagged in astral levels with this etheric implants. And so then what happens, those implants affect your mind. And this is when people then, the tagged people, when that person that comes back and talk again, what happens is they're fully sort of like hypnotized by this person. You'll see a lot of, I'm sure you've been in studying a lot of all these spiritual teachings, and you'll hear some people and they kind of talk like they're trying to hypnotize you.
Yeah.
In fact, through those astral tagging. They do. That's a way to control the incarnate here. So that's the other thing that I've experienced about tagging. And when I went to Ashayana Dean's workshop, and a lot of her techniques or every workshop, they do something, they activate something, or the guardians give them something that they put in their body. What I realized, it's all astral tags. And when I went to that workshop in 2012, those people that were there, they were so tagged that there was no place in their etheric body where they weren't tagged. Because every workshop for 12 years, every workshop that she does, she implants the astral tags in these people, and they take it willingly. And so what happened is they were activating this silver seed that astral beings had given to them, the silver seed, and they put it into their sort of stomach area. They physically took that with their hands, opened their hand, as they said, that it's coming into their hand, and then they put it inside of them. And because what I experienced there, it's funny now. But anyway, because I can feel the energy. And then not 15 minutes later, after they tag themselves, the astral feeding through that tag had started. And I'm sitting there in the room and I'm watching energetics, and every person in that room, 400 people, are getting sucked their energy out of their solar plexus. They're getting drained. And it was so horrific that I can't even explain. Right now, when I think of that, how horrific that was, I'm still very emotional. I feel so bad for these people because they're so tagged and they have no idea. I have no clue how enslaved they are through these tags. They're etheric. They're sort of your belief system, that concentrated belief. When you have that really belief, it becomes a tag through what astral beings, mostly it is to drain your energy through it. And the second one, the reason why this tag is to control your mind. Because there is an astral technology through scalar waves that sends the mind control programs through that. And we have those, within our mind, and pineal gland is one of those that it always tags. It has like a chip in it, it's tagged. And the second reason why it's to control. There's a lot of different ways, but most of those tags are to control. And the other reason a lot of people get tagged, they're also being used to control you. Like for those people that truly start to awaken to their spirit. And I'm sure that people that experience that, and you, Alan, you might have witnessed that once you truly start waking up to your own spirit, you all of a sudden have these people around you start acting in a really strange way, to almost where they want to control you, they want to, mentally program you, and they want you back, because that's also, those tags are also used to control those people to become sort of like an agent. I'm going to, give an example from Matrix movie, become an agent. So they're fully controlled by the system through that. The way to get rid of them is first to understand, when you have awareness of something, in that awareness, you are so, you gain your power because you're aware that this is what's happening, that this is what's going on. And that awareness will already disempower that tag. So that's the first step. There is people that know how to use your own spirit to untag your own self. And I think that, next time maybe if you talk to Gauze, he can go into more details about it. But there's people that can help get a space within, and very smart, the shamans that do that organic healing. They're the ones that been doing that with the planet, using the planetary planet as a power source for that healing. So they have this certain techniques, I guess, or ways to get rid of those tags.
Sounds very
But the
interesting.
other thing the other thing is that the more you become aware, the more sort of your own spirit will pop them out of your personal blueprint. It might help some people to get rid of those, and this way it's going to be easier for them to then reconnect with their own spirit. But if you don't have a way, if you don't have an organic, shaman or somebody that can help you, then, ask the planet to do that. And you may have to do certain things, yourself, and ask for guidance of your own spirit, how you can get rid of those. And the way I've realized, the way the planet speaks to me, because it's trying to heal my own mind, and it's trying to bring my mind into alliance with my body intelligence, it will show up. Things will show up. It would be a sign on the car, or a commercial or something, or a movie you watch, and it will give you clues how you can do that. Because a lot of times we are taught that our mental body is fully, how to say that? It is mostly inorganic, but that doesn't mean that it cannot be healed. So it can be used, and it is used by the planet to help us to heal that mind. And if we can't feel it within us, then sometimes it does show us through the, outside things. And like I was getting my, you remember I was telling you about how when I first began to receiving the information, I would get confirmations. And my confirmations were, something I heard on the radio or something like that. It was big, because I would ask for confirmations because I didn't trust it on the beginning.
I used to get feathers for confirmations about 18 months ago. When I used to get to a new stage of awareness, and I was thinking, is this true or not? I'd go out to my car and there'd be loads of white feathers on it, and feathers at my doorstep, and I thought, oh, well, that's a bit strange. But then every time I needed confirmation, I saw these white feathers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and people have, and the planet and your own mind will work with you. It will work with you, and it will give you the answers. It's sometimes we are so sort of unstable in our mind that we can't see it. We are too busy to look around, And I realized that I was getting a lot of knocks from the inside. My spirit was knocking on my door from the inside for a long time. But when I was too busy trying to study some sort of teachings, I wasn't paying attention to it.
Yeah.
So we have to just sort of relax our minds. There is not something we can do about it. We gotta be. And for those people, and I know I got a lot of people asking, how is it? What do we do? How do we get on this? And I say, even if it's a tiny bed, if you go and you go sit with the tree, or you hang out with the tree, and you sit there and you want to communicate, and all of a sudden there is a little bit of wind, and the leaves are moved. Take that. That's the first step, and just enjoy that moment of that little tiny bit of a communication. And then it'll just keep, and allow it, and don't push it with your mind. Don't push it with your mind that, I have to have a full-on conversation with the tree. You don't. You're right there. Be in that moment when the tree moves those leaves, and you realize that it's trying to communicate with you. Let's just say that in that little way. Just be there in that moment with that. And your mind will tell you, well, is something wrong with you. It's not enough communication, because your mind it's a sick, it has sickness within it. that you have to heal. So you got to kind of ease into it. I used to talk to my mind, and it used to, because it used to go a little bit, crazy. It's just like, there's so much I felt, but my mind could not process it, and it was just going a little shaky on me, sort of. I started, giving me this signs that it's just too much information. And I used to talk to it lovingly, and I say, you can handle it. I know you're having a hard time processing this, but you can handle it. You are stronger than that. You can handle all this. And I would laugh at myself so much for trying to find a ways to process information that was coming from within me. Because my mind wasn't, it wasn't ready for it. It never, I haven't practiced that in a long time. And when I was a kid, it was natural. I just felt it, and my mind wasn't developed enough to be shaky or to worry about it, that it's too much information or maybe something wrong with it, So much that your mind is just constantly give you these thoughts that are programmed within you, I had over 40 years of this life that, I had this programming. So undo and make your mind to become part of you and work in harmony with you. It's going to take work. So whatever little communication or whatever little feeling that you get, just go with it. And be sort of grateful for that, because little by little, your mind will heal this. They'll go to the tree to talk to it, be there on one level with it. You'll just experience each other. One thing that I realize about the trees, eventually, that's I call it my trees, that I go to all the time, is that they're kind of happy to see me now. They're just like excited that I'm coming around, because, this is kind of that joy. I feel their joy now, because they see, people like me walking by. There's a lot of people in my neighbor that walk their dogs through there and walk through there, but a lot of them are unaware. And so the trees are seeing these people as a robots coming through, and then they see me as a live person. Of course they're excited.
It makes perfect
and I'm
sense.
excited.
Yeah.
And I'm excited. And that nature will respond to the life that is within you. Not the program, not your thoughts, not your questions. It will respond to the life within you. And you will feel the life within them. And so like people on my Facebook, they've asked about, all the life, the trees and I guess the fairies and all of that stuff. It's all alive. It's all consciousness. But one thing we were taught that, let's say, okay, fairies are this and they're doing that and this. Well, when we really think about it, it's more separation. So what I wanted to tell people is that, yes, the trees, let's say they have their own consciousness, then there's, the grass has their own consciousness. But when they're healed and work with the planet as one, they're all become kind of one layer of consciousness. So I personally have not seen fairies or anything, but I felt the life and the consciousness and the intelligence of trees. Very intelligent.
Yeah.
In a sort of, a live way, not a program or a mental, cycle where you just run through your knowledge over and over and over again. It's vast. It's unlimited consciousness, and it's alive. You sort of feel the spirit of it. So I don't see those, beings of the nature as being separate from it. I personally feel it. like I said in the beginning, I see very little lately. All I do is feel. I feel everything within me. I connect to that part of me that gives me that feeling. If that makes any sense.
It makes perfect sense to me, yeah, exactly. Because you put into words what's very hard to do, yeah, it's just that feeling inside. Where, I mean, I've got lots of plants where I live, because like I said, I live in a concrete jungle, but inside my house, I've got plants everywhere, and I look at them all the time, and I talk to them, and I just feel, I swear, that they just talk back to me, but not with words. It's just, I know what you mean about that, they're happy to see you, yeah, it's a connection, and that's just with, like, plants, yeah, it's amazing. Right then, Lily, we've been on now for coming up to 2 hours nearly. I won't have to cut off pretty shortly because to get it on my recording on Blog Talk Radio, I have to keep it under 2 hours. So is anything else you'd like to say shortly before we call it a day?
I'm sorry to all my friends on Facebook, but I haven't gotten to most of the questions that they give me, and I just want to at least thank you all for all those wonderful questions. And, I guess as I go, I'll try to answer them. I might do another video. Sometimes it just makes sense for me to sort of go into an answer that way. And this is what I've done. This is how I started to record my videos, is because a question that I sort of had the knowledge from within about, I couldn't find the words to type because it's a lot more difficult for me to type because English is not my native language. And so for me to type, it's another layer of difficulty. So when I talk, then I sort of get into that zone where I process information from within, and then I literally, again, tell my mind, okay, you got to find the right words real quick, okay? So there's no time to, try to look for it. It's just whatever feels like it is, and the word comes out. And it's difficult for me because my native language is sort of flipped. So this is why when I talk, a lot of my sentences are sort of flipped. So they're in a sort of backward flow a lot of times. So I know it's hard to understand, but when I try to type, and a lot of people perceive that because then I use really sharp words because I have a limited amount of words. And so when I type things, it kind of comes out as really harsh, sort of authority. Kind of thing, and then a lot of people been complaining that you're so it comes across as like know-it-all, not not even close to know. And you know what? I don't even want to know all of it. What I do want is to experience it within me, and if I can't find words to talk about it, so be it. I still want to experience.
Yeah.
I still want to experience, even if I can't explain it, because it is an incredible feeling to be in tune with the planet. It's such a peaceful feeling of that being at home.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, totally. Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Lily, for coming on. I've really, really enjoyed listening to you. It's been really fantastic. The connection's been sort of 99% good. There's been a few crackles here and there, but overall, it's been very good. Maybe you could do another show with me, you, and Goz on it, maybe, at a later date. And have, because I know Goz is just a wealth of information, get some more of insights onto the things we've talked about. Right then.
He's the historian.
He's what, sorry? Yes, he is.
He says a historian. Don't keep things in mind, but he kind of keeps the record of this process. And I've been working with Gods. I mean, it's not that we've been working; we've been sort of communicating for years now, and been working sort of through our own path, but helping each other. He helped me quite a bit into, sort of understand what I was going through,
Yeah.
And And a lot of times he would give me the words for it because I didn't have them. So I am very grateful to God. He had helped me so much, and he has got so much information.
Yes.
And like I said before, I mean, a lot of times people will hear some information, and I don't want to put down all those spiritual teachings. When you understand that those spiritual teachings just a clone of the organic thing, because all they can do is kind of clone it or, copy it. That if you need a mental understanding, but you gotta understand that most of those are clones of the real thing. So it can give you an idea, some of those facts, some of the history, or how there is. You can get some information from all kinds of sources, even from channelings. I sometimes listen to channelings because I want to see their perspective. I want to know what's going on in astral level. So this way I can then take that and apply it to my own information, to my own feelings. And actually what it does in a way, it's I take that information that is a copy and then I apply it to real thing and I infuse it with real spirit, a planetary spirit to give me a better understanding what is the organic way of certain things.
Yeah.
And it does. So I don't want to be negative and say to people that, oh, don't listen to anybody. It's just understand that the real teaching, the real spirit is within you. And all this other things are just mental copies of it. But that doesn't mean that they're not helpful, especially in the process of healing our own minds. It could be very helpful.
Yeah, that's very, very good advice. Right, Lily, I'm going to have to cut us short now because you're just about up to 2 hours. So it's been an absolute pleasure having you on. I'll speak to you soon. Okay.
All right, Alan, thank you so much for having me.
No
I
problem.
really enjoyed our talk.
No problem. Speak to you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.